SKG and the URC. Stephen Kisbey-Green, come on in.
How's it going, lads?
Good morning to you.
I think beautiful Friday morning.
Our resident South African rugby nerd. Fair enough.
Yeah, I was looking forward to the weekend's rugby.
So Stormers against Bulls tomorrow evening, and I've already put it on record a little bit earlier on that it's not a game I'm planning to watch. It's definitely disappointing that Ulster and Leinster. What are you laughing about?
I don't know, it's just like so disrespectful. Like, I mean, I'm already in Stephen. If this is a debate between you and Stephen about the importance of this game, I'm already rooting against you for the way you've like dismissed
I'm
this.
just being honest. Like,
okay.
I'm just being honest. There's no showmanship about that. I genuinely have no plans to watch the game. It is disappointing, of course, that there wasn't an Ulster or a Leinster in the final where you'd have that bit of a vested interest.
I wish you said this earlier in the week, because like that could have been put to both of the head coaches in the press conferences, and they might have just been like, well, there's no point playing this if Adrian Barry of Cheeseboard fame is not watching us.
They could give two hoots as to what I or anybody else at this side of the water thinks. But
no Adrian Barry and his cheeseboard tuning in to watch a 6:30 kickoff.
It ain't happening. It'd be ideal time for a cheeseboard.
Deliberately pushed back so that Adrian Barry could watch it at the particular time.
It's clashing with the US Open as well. I'm adding that caveat as to why I'm not going to be watching. But you're going to convince us why. 3 reasons. SKG, let's go.
It's going to be probably one of the best games of the season. It's two completely different styles of South African rugby. There's this sort of ongoing narrative that all South African teams play the same rugby. It's up the guts. It's one-out runners. It's boring. It's this and the next thing. Stormers have kind of proven that wrong entirely all season. They've been exciting. They've been attack-minded, and they've got a lot of sort of wide-ranging skills in their side. The Bulls are a lot like what you'd expect from the South African side, so it's going to be what we hoped Leinster versus the Bulls was supposed to be last week. It's going to be that, but a bit better.
So reason number one is it's probably going to be the best game of the season. So I'm not with you. I'm not having that. It could go either way. It could be. It's going to be wet. It could be a desperate game.
What's the best URC game of the season so far then? And what's the barometer?
Leinster's thumping of Glasgow. Was it in the what did the
game? What a classic!
You cannot tell me that you enjoyed that pathetic.
Of course I did.
Why? Because you're a Leinster supporter.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, that is the opposite of what good rugby is. When a team thrashes a team 70-0, or 70-14 or whatever it was, I can't remember what the cricket score. That, to me, is the opposite of good, exciting, watchable rugby.
So
it's going to be close. It's going to be in the trenches. It's going to be back and forth. No team is going to get away from one another. Yeah, it's going to be wet and miserable, but so is Connacht. So are you saying that every
so is Connacht generally wet and miserable? Wow, Jesus, I thought I was the leading contender here for having a lash off Connacht, but SKG have just moved swiftly into number 1 there. Anyway, I'm not having that number 1 reason. I'm not having it. It might be the best game of the season. I'm not having. We'll judge that after the game. Number 2, what have we got?
Number 2, it's going to be a true representation of the chaos, the crack that South African fans will have. Basically, it's going to advertise the raucousness of South African stadiums. Cape Town is one of the best sort of party atmospheres in terms of a stadium, even though it's at 7:30 at night in the middle of winter. It's still going to be a good party atmosphere. It's sold out to the capacity that they are allowed to sell it out. It's still 50% capacity in South Africa stadiums. So that's a little bit disappointing that they didn't increase it to full capacity. But the match itself is sold out. It'll be a good advertisement to show Irish fans what you can expect going over to a South African to an away match in South Africa. I mean, I'm sure yourself as the anti-South African in the room are one of the few that have said that you would never travel to South Africa for a rugby match unless it's like a tour of like an international. But the costs are minimal. The most expensive thing is the flight. Everything else in South Africa, when you think of the Euros, is cheap. And this is going to be like this time next year, if a South African final is if South Africa are hosting Leinster, I fully expect a huge portion of Prawn Sandwich Brigade people to be out in full force in Pretoria or Durban or Cape Town.
And I'm fully sure that I'm actually sharing a studio with one of those people, Stephen.
No, I thought Adrian was with a cheese board, not a prawn sandwich.
Oh, he will take whatever is put in front of him.
I think that absolutely, SKG, you're sort of luring us in here with a bit of these sort of suckering us up with some of these little soft punches, and with the last blow you're going to knock us out, because I have to say a full stadium, Rocca Stadium, that is absolutely not going to turn me away from the US Open to turn this game on. So you're 0 from 2 for me so far. Knock us out with your last punch.
Probably won't entice you with this last one. It's the Connacht fans seem to hate you too. Jake White is probably the most hated man in Connacht at the moment, purely because of his imbecile comments at the beginning of the season, and it'll just be great to try and watch his team lose. I do think if anybody's going to beat the Bulls in a final, it will be the Stormers. Their style of rugby is the way to beat them. So, I mean, for those of you that don't really remember what Jake White said at the beginning of this, he was sort of saying that Connacht have a lot of Leinster guys that come down from Leinster because they didn't get a contract up there. They go down there. It's a small franchise. The players like Mac Hansen would go to try and make themselves noticed by the big franchises, the big provinces. So he basically kind of called Connacht the smallest province in Ireland. And it'll just be good to see him get his comeuppance. Also, a lot of South African fans don't like the Bulls. In fact, they're the only South African team that, unless you're a Bulls supporter, you just don't want them to win.
I think that last point is probably the thing that turns this for Adrian, because of course Adrian was working as an agent for Jake White not so long ago, trying to get Mac Hansen to move to a different province. In fact, I think it was he had heard Adrian privately saying that Mac Hansen should move to Munster. That was what prompted Jake White to make his disgusting comments at the start of the year. So I'm with you on that, Adrian. I'm sure you're interested. I should also say at this point that if Leinster are back in the URC final next season, and like you glorified it, like, hold on a minute, actually. You were the guy who tweeted being like, this is possibly the greatest team of all time ever at a Pro 14 final.
Before,
at a Pro 14 final, which is essentially the URC final, and now you won't even watch the URC final. So you can't have your cheese board needed too.
Ridiculous, sure. Like, you can't compare, like, the team that, if Munster are involved in the final at the weekend, are you watching the URC final this weekend?
I think after this item, I certainly will be watching.
Do you know what, I have to say, SKG, you do have me with the last one, because I owe debt to Connacht fans, so I'll be there supporting on that basis. But no, I mean, you don't watch a game just because it's the game. You watch the game because your team might be involved.
Are you watching the Super Rugby final tomorrow morning?
Am I watching what? No.
The Super Rugby final tomorrow morning.
I'll be out coaching. I won't have time for that.
I mean, fair. It's 8 o'clock kickoff. Irish fans should definitely watch that, because Ireland's heading off to New Zealand next week, in 2 weeks, or next week. And the majority of the All Black squad are busy playing against each other tomorrow. So it'll be a good test to see where that's coming from. But just as a rugby supporter, you should want. I mean, the more rugby is on your TV, the more you should want to watch it.
No, I'm with you, SKG. I'm with you. You just haven't bowled me over entirely for this one. It'll be the sort of game that, if it's close and it's tight, as you are promising that it will be, and that it's becoming a game of the season, as it develops, I may flip from having it on the smaller screen to the bigger screen. I think that's probably the most I can promise at this stage. There's certainly going to be no cheese board out, and we'll just see how we get on.
Are cheese boards a thing in South Africa, Stephen?
Cheese and wine, yeah, best wine in the world.
Mm-hmm. Do you have an embargo on South African wine in your house, Adrian?
No, there's no embargo on any variety. Well, maybe a couple of countries. Any wine in my house, if it's in a bottle and it's red, in you come.
Yeah.
SKG, you're off out to the cricket this morning.
I am, yeah, heading off to Clontarf to see the Proteas take on Ireland. Unfortunately, Ireland can't do anything to win the series. It's already 2-0 to South Africa. But it'll be good. The weather's not doing too well. It's going to be a bit of a rain delay, I think. But it's going to be a good day out.
Okay, good man. Well, listen, enjoy the rugby over the weekend. It looks like the bin lorry's outside, so make sure your bins are out. Good man.
So just